Welcome to This Week in Podcasting, where we discuss this week's most exciting podcasting news and tips, all in under 10 minutes. Episode 25 is provided by Sounder.fm, the smarter way to podcast. Let's get started. This week we cover why you should chat with people who have never listened to a podcast, the real reason women love true crime shows, how to avoid production burnout, and more. First up, why we should be talking to people who don't listen to podcasts. This may be painful to hear, but not everyone is into podcasts. Those of us in podcast land forget we're in the minority, writes Dan Misener of Pacific Content. That's why I love it when someone tells me they don't really listen to podcasts at the beginning of a strategy session. It's true. It is easy to forget around half of the U.S. population has yet to listen to a show. Edison research even interviewed non-listeners. Some admit they didn't know about podcasts. Others say they have enough entertainment in their life. We'll link to the video in our show notes. To Dan's point, these non-listeners are full of insight and begs the question, how is the industry working to make podcasting accessible? How can we enhance a listener's first experience? What are the learning curves and how can we address them? It also gives creators a big goal. Make a podcast that a non-listener feels compelled to check out. Next time you come across a podcast virgin, ask them some questions. Moving on, if you're a woman who loves true crime podcasts, you're not alone. Research and data show us that true crime is a hot topic for female listeners. The genre increased by 16% among women in 2019 compared to 2018. In an article for Spotify, Gore Galore interviews the associate professor of psychology at Illinois Wesleyan University to understand why women can't get enough of these stories. Amanda Vickery says, "My research suggests that women are drawn to true crime because of the information they can learn from it, even if they aren't aware that that might be the reason they're listening. So, on the surface, women may be tuning in for the thrill. But as Amanda suggests, the deeper attraction is the opportunity to gain insight. Many true crime shows dive into the psychology behind criminal behaviors. They also give an inside look into the investigation process. Could it be that women are subconsciously teaching themselves how to stay safe?" Up next, how to avoid podcast burnout. For many audio creators, the reality is podcasting has to fit into an already busy schedule. Executing an entire production schedule between picking up kids from ballet, heading to CrossFit after a full day of work, and eating dinner can lead to exhaustion and even resentment. In fact, time management rose to the top when we asked the podcast community over on Reddit what aspect of audio creation they find most challenging. So in our latest blog post, we interviewed 12 new and seasoned podcasters on how they remain passionate about their show and avoid burning out. Some tips are simple, like shoot hoops between editing. Others may motivate you to produce shorter shows or crowdsource content. Either way, these creators remind us that it's all about having fun and finding a groove that works for you. We'll link to this blog in the show notes. And last but not least, our random podcasting find of the week, podfasting, or speeding up a podcast in order to consume more of it. We see this quick consumption trend a lot in entertainment, binge TV watching a TV series, or speed reading books. Podfasters argue they've identified a flaw with the podcast as an information delivery medium. People speak out loud at an average of 150 words per minute, while our brains internally yammer along at 400 words per minute, writes Steve Rousseau of 10. So how fast can we really listen and comprehend? Yuri Hassan, director of Princeton's Hassan Lab, a neuroscience lab that studies the brain's response to natural life events, found that word recognition drops about 40% when audio is played back twice as fast. In testing this theory, Steve felt the most comfortable listening to podcasts at 1.25 speed, saying that it actually made the podcast slightly more enjoyable. Hassan explains that audio at 1.25 times speed actually hits a sort of sweet spot for humans, fast enough to keep things moving without overly taxing our brains, writes Steve. When Steve bumped it up to 3 times, quote, "It was like listening to an anxious 7th grader give a presentation, coherent but rushed." What speed do you listen to your favorite show? That's all Sounder has for you this week. Keep on creating.